So are leftist men more dogmatic than the rest of us? Now, Emily, not a dig on your husband. You just brought up an interesting point I've actually been thinking about for a while now. I wonder if it's easier for women, especially mothers, to be more flexible and compassionate in our leftist politics. To be more understanding when we look at the spectrum of good, better, best and see that people can only plug in at the level of good. Now, again, I've got a very skewed sample. This is just anecdotal, but the folks I see being the most zealous and upset when people can't give best all the time are typically men, and typically white men. The most puritanical in their ideals and the most judgmental of when other folks cannot meet some kind of imaginary standard of leftist engagement. And maybe this is like the epitome of leftist discourse, but I wonder how much of that is white male privilege. Not having to as frequently be faced with situations where you don't have the capacity to do all of the things that you want to do. That your obligations of caregiving mean that you have to prioritize the needs of children and elders. So you can't show up to all the things and you can't give your money to all the places you would like to. How a lack of childcare impacts you disproportionately, and that impacts your ability to engage. If we want to have a more just and equitable society, and we are activists advocating for that, then we have to temper our passion so it doesn't tip over into zealotry. We have to temper it with a measure of compassion and understanding for why other folks might not be able to access advocacy the same way that we do. There's really two main areas where I see an immediate deficit. The lack of organized childcare and elder care as requisite parts of planning events in leftist spaces. You want to round up everybody to go to a protest? Cool. Who do you have organizing childcare? Who volunteers to sit with someone's elderly relative so that they can attend? Or who's creating a kitty so that people can hire caregivers so that they can come to events? Second would be being intentional about the ways that people with disabilities have limitations to their engagement and trying to accommodate appropriately, rather than judging them for not being able to meet your extreme level of engagement. Understanding why it might be that people with chronic illnesses and disabilities don't want to come to your event if you don't have masks, if the event is not wheelchair and walker accessible. Again, I appreciate the enthusiasm about wanting to make a better world. And that requires that we start now by accommodating and supporting caregivers, folks with disabilities, folks with limitations to engagement. That we build compassion and understanding for why people who are not young, able-bodied white men have a different level of engagement and they have other responsibilities and different capacity. Understanding that different capacity for engagement, different bandwidths are all valuable. It's not a competition for who could be the most leftist and the most puritanical in our ideals. It's about offering compassion, support, and accessibility so that we reduce barriers to engagement and help everyone participate in the process.